What is going on, y'all? It's your boy RickyMoto. Welcome back to yet another video. In this video, I wanted to talk about if the Yamaha R7 is a perfect fit for a beginner rider. I get this question all of the time, even people asking me about the R3 versus the R7. What bike is for you? Well, hopefully in this video, I can answer some of those questions. Before we get into this video, I do want to make an announcement that I just launched my brand, Cliche Built. It's an automotive lifestyle brand where we will be featuring products like key tags, stickers, and all sorts of goodies. If you guys are interested in any of the new gear, go and check out the shop at clichebuilt.com. And on top of that, in celebration of launching this brand, we are giving away $100 for free to one of you lucky winners. All you have to do is go to the website and sign up for the newsletter with your email address, which takes literally 5 seconds to do, and you are automatically entered to win $100. The deadline for the giveaway is March 31st. Make sure to go read through all the terms and conditions that are listed on the giveaway page. Without further ado, let's get into this video. So if you're a beginner rider and you are looking to get your first bike, you have to do a couple of assessments with yourself first. How much riding experience do you have? Are you someone who has absolutely zero experience? Or you kind of tampered around with dirt bikes when you were younger, or maybe you sat on your friend's bike before and tested around the block. All of these little things go a long way because your understanding of how a motorcycle functions, how it handles, all of these things will play a major factor depending on the bike that you get, whether it's a 300cc, 600, 700 range. Before you get started with anything, I always suggest taking the MSF course, where they'll teach you how to ride, teach you all the components. You do a little bit of studying in the classroom, you do a little bit of riding in the parking lot. That way you get some hands-on experience and training from a professional to really understand how a motorcycle works and how to ride it in different types of ways. And even through that course, you get to try out different bikes and kind of get a feel for what it is that you actually enjoy about motorcycles. There's so many options out there. There are sport bikes, there are cruisers. You want to explore to see what it is that you want to ride, like what fits what you're looking for. I was pretty dead set on riding sport bikes from the get-go, and so that was my kind of focus. Maybe you don't know what kind of bike you want. Maybe you don't know what kind of platform that you're looking for. And so you want to figure out what it is that you want to do. Are you someone who likes to do highway runs? Are you someone who just wants to, cruise around town? Or just someone that's just looking for a calm, commuter kind of bike? But I'm assuming the people watching this video is probably more kind of leaning towards the sport bike category, with the Yamaha R7 being a sport bike or a super sport kind of style bike. So if you're thinking about the Yamaha R7, there's a couple of things you have to consider because the bike is very unique of its own. You gotta see how tall you actually are. The bike is not necessarily designed for very short people because it is a bit higher up. The seat height is quite high up there. I'm 5'7" and I'm kind of on the shorter end, so to speak, but I am able to flat foot on the bike comfortably. And for me, depending on the road conditions, if it's a little bit slanted, if it's straight, sometimes I can flat foot, sometimes I have a tippy toe. So if that kind of can give you an idea in terms of height requirements, I'd say the minimum would be like 5'5" at the absolute minimum, because anything below that, you're really just on one foot to kind of balance yourself, which if you're a beginner, is a little bit nerve-wracking because you can't feel the ground, and that can kind of throw your balance off. You might not be able to, control or keep the bike up. If you're taller than that, that's totally fine. I've seen people that are like 6 feet riding it and they don't feel too cramped. So there's definitely enough space if you're a taller rider, and I feel like target audience for the R7 is someone who's a little bit on the average to higher height, because it is a much bigger bike. On top of that, you have to kind of recognize that the bike is heavy. I don't know on the top of my head the exact numbers, but if I can put on the screen right here, the wet weight, I believe, which means it's fully fueled up, is closer to 400 pounds, or kind of itching at it. That is not light at all. And I'm 120 pounds. That bike is literally like 3 times the weight of me. If you can't lift 3 times your weight, if your bike is tipping over, it's most likely going to go down without you being able to lift it up. So you have to kind of understand the physical requirements that the R7 has, with it being a chunkier bike, with it being a taller bike. So if you are someone who doesn't really fit that kind of requirement, another best option is a Yamaha R3. It's a little bit smaller, so if you are shorter, you'll kind of feel more comfortable with it. It's a little bit narrower, so if you are someone who's a little on the slimmer side, your body can kind of fit on it without kind of it tipping over, or like you can't reach, and et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot lighter as well. But the next thing to consider is the performance. The Yamaha R7, I gotta say, is not a slow bike. It could be a little intimidating if you're new. A lot of the people who say the R7 is slow are either internet fanboys of the R6, or they're an experienced rider that has ridden fast bikes before. Obviously, if you're gonna compare the R7 to like a 1000 or an R6, obviously those bikes are significantly quicker. But if you are a beginner rider, you're not used to that kind of sensation of it accelerating so quickly. It could be very dangerous, you know? You can hurt yourself really, really bad if you don't know what you're doing. The R7 is known to be a very torquey bike. You know, if you're not gentle with the throttle, it'll literally cause you to flip. It does power wheelies all the time. As someone who's been riding for a few years, I mistakenly power wheelie on it a lot of times. You know, not that it completely comes up the front end, but occasionally if I'm going full throttle, I do feel the front tire lift. And when it comes back down, it causes a little bit of that death wobble kind of situation sometimes. So just know that this bike is not something you want to play with if you don't know what you're doing. When I was first starting off riding motorcycles, my perception of speed was very different from how it is now. My first ever bike was a mini bike. It was a Z125 Pro, 125cc. And when I first started riding that thing, even going 20 miles an hour on it felt crazy, crazy fast. Your perception of speed is gonna be very different from driving. You know, you can be going 60 miles an hour in a car on a highway. It feels like absolutely nothing. Going 60 miles an hour on a bike, you feel like you're going 100 because you're wide open. You can feel the physical wind and pressure of your body accelerating and moving. It's a very different feeling where you feel like you're going a lot faster than you actually am. And that's not to steer you away from getting an R7 or even considering it, because a lot of people start on big bikes even, you know, some people start on 600, some people start on 1,000. It just depends on what you're able to tolerate and how much self-control do you have. Are you someone who's able to control yourself and be patient in learning how to ride? And you gotta be honest with yourself, right? Or are you someone who just can't wait to just be a fast flying rider? If you have that mentality where you just want to go fast and you're a beginner rider, you got to be quite careful, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can really hurt yourself on these things. These machines are powerful and you have no protection, there's no seatbelts. And especially if you are a younger person, especially a male, you know, I'm not trying to point fingers here, but typically we have that kind of attitude where we think we're on top of the world and our ego takes over. So you have to have a lot of patience if you are really seriously considering getting an R7 with zero experience. If you have a little bit of experience riding around here and there with your friends' bikes and whatnot, okay, that actually could help with you a little bit. But if you are an absolute beginner who has zero experience on a bike and you're considering the R7, you have to have a lot of patience. Now, it's hard for me to say that the R7 is a beginner bike. I would say the R7 is designed to be a more intermediate motorcycle, where it's a bike that if you are a beginner to grow into. I wouldn't say it's a starter bike. A starter bike would be something in the 300cc range, like an R3 or anything like that, because the power of those bikes is very manageable and it's easy to learn on because they're so nimble. The R7 being a chunkier and faster bike, it's a little bit difficult to maneuver if you're not used to the weight, because motorcycles are quite heavy. When you get used to it, it feels like it's a feathery light bike. But when you're first riding, you don't really understand how heavy it actually is until you try it. Because I'm assuming when you're new, you're not comfortable leaning yet. And so if you're turning, it feels like the bike is hesitant to turn. You have to really lean in order to get it to turn. And if you're new, that's a very scary feeling. I would say the R7 is a great future-proof bike, you know? If you are gonna be starting off, you know, safe and getting like a 300, it'll be easier to learn. You can learn a lot more, I'd say, but you will grow out of it quite quickly. Especially if you're a sport bike rider, if you want to go fast. A 300, it's gonna grow out of you pretty quick. I'm just saying that point blank. You can definitely still start on an R7 because it is still conservative to some degree, where the throttle, yes, it's sensitive, but if you're soft on it, it won't throw you off the bike. My bottom line is you just have to be really patient if you want to start on an R7. Now, the next thing you want to think about, especially as a beginner, is, I mean, it's relative to what your financial situation is. I think it's pretty worth the price that it sells for, but it's still a lot of money. Out the door with tax and everything is gonna be close to 11 to 12K. That's a good chunk of money. And you know, you still have to pay for all the maintenance on it, the insurance, especially insurance if you're a younger person, that'd be much higher. All your gear, your helmet, your clothing, your protective gear, your boots. You have to really take into consideration the budget of a R7 compared to like an R3. It's like literally half the price. Are you able to financially afford it? That's another question you wanna ask yourself. You know, it's a much more expensive bike. And so, you know, anything that kind of goes along with it, the parts, the repairs, the maintenance is gonna be a little bit higher. But that can kind of go both ways though, because if you do start off with a cheaper used or smaller bike for a cheaper price, most likely you're gonna wanna upgrade that bike to a bigger bike. And so you're gonna actually be spending double the money because you're buying the cheaper bike first. And after you grow out of it, you gotta sell it for most likely a loss, then get the new bikes. You're, you know, spending more in that kind of way, if you think about it like that. So the R7, if you want to have it long-term, I'd say it's a great investment. But if you're gonna be changing up bikes pretty often, it's a lot of money to be moving around like that you're probably gonna get hit with a lot of depreciation. So you have to look at it from a lot of different angles. If the R7 is a perfect fit for you, The finances is one thing, but the actual bike itself, if it's a fit for you, physically are you able to handle it and mentally are you able to handle it. I think the Yamaha R7 is a great platform for even beginner riders to learn on. I can't give you a definite answer if the Yamaha R7 is a great beginner bike or not, because it really just depends on your experience, how much self-control you have, what your budget is, and if you are looking for something like that, if you're looking for a bike that you can grow into. A lot of beginner bikes don't have a long ownership span. A lot of them typically have multiple owners because people who buy beginner bikes like 300s and whatnot, they tend to cycle them out because once they're done with it, they move on. The R7 is already in that level where it's a bike that you tend to keep long term because it can, grow and you can kind of learn with it. It has enough power, it has enough performance, it has enough features that can last you a while without getting bored. So if you are someone who's very future thinking, someone who kind of wants to keep a bike for a while, the Yamaha R7 is definitely one of those type of bikes, So hopefully this video can kind of answer some of your questions and concerns if the Yamaha R7 is a great beginner bike. I think the answer is in your hands to decide whether it's a good fit for you or not. Hopefully I was able to give you guys some information that can kind of answer some of those confusions. If you do have any more additional questions or things that you're wondering about the R7, you can just drop it in the comment section below or DM me directly at Instagram. All the social media information is going to be in the description below. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like and a comment below. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button as well as turning on the post notifications to see when I upload. Last but not least, yet again, another reminder, we are still running the giveaway for $100 cash in celebration of our new brand Cliche build. All you have to do is sign up for the newsletter. Everything is going to be in the description below. But with that being said, it's been your boy RickyMoto, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.